Alright, so continuing on, that should get you through number 6, the first video. And so we're still doing the same thing, but these changed just a little bit because now they don't have the same denominator. So we can't use that denominator. So we're going to have to actually go and find the least common denominator. So let's look at number 7. So first thing we have to do is find our least common denominator. And we've got to make sure first that all of our denominators are factored completely. Well, when I look at this x minus 1, it is factored completely. And then the 4... well, we could break that down. We can say that it is 2 times 2. So, remember, your least common denominator has to include that first one, because right now I don't have anything there. And since it's got a minus sign, x and 1 are superglued together. They're together, so put it in parentheses together. And then my second denominator, there's where I check it. Do I already have a 2 up there? Well, no, I don't. So I'm going to put a 2. Or I could just put times 2. And then check. Do we have a second 2? We got to have 2 of them because this one denominator has 2. And we do not, so we're going to put another 2 there. So we can say that our least common denominator then, I'm going to put my single things first, is 2 times 2 times the x minus 1. So because we have 2 fractions, we're going to set up 2 fractions. And we're going to put that least common denominator in the bottom of it. So we said it was 2 times x minus 1. And so I put that for both of these. And then remember your first fraction here had a numerator that was 6. And it had the denominator x minus 1. So what did we multiply that x minus 1 by? A 2 and a 2. So I'm going to multiply the 6 by a 2 and a 2. My second denominator was a 5x. So I'm going to put that up here. And it was over 2 times 2. Well, what did we multiply that 2 times 2 by? We multiplied it by that x minus 1 that has to go in parentheses because it's together. So now we're ready to combine them, just like what we did in 1 through 6 now. So we're going to combine our numerators over our common denominator. So my first numerator is just 2 times 6. And then I have a minus. Now remember, because that 5x is by itself, let's put it first. So this is going to be 5x times the x minus 1 all over that least common denominator. And then we can start simplifying. So we can say, well, here at the beginning, this is just 2 times 6, which is 24. And in the second part, I'm going to have to distribute the negative 5x. So negative 5x times x is negative 5x squared. And negative 5x times, careful, that's a negative 1, is a positive 5x. And it's all over. Go ahead and multiply your numbers together, but don't distribute it, because remember, our goal is to try to make something cancel. So 2 times 2 is 4 times the x minus 1. And then we got to check, can we do anything to that numerator? So mine's going to have to keep going down because I didn't use a separate sheet here so that you could see it worked on the paper. But you really, really, really ought to be using a separate sheet of paper so I can read this. So I'm going to switch my order. I'm going to put my x squared term first. And so we can see, let's change colors here. We can see that's a negative 5x squared. And then my x term, so that's a positive 5x. And then my no x, or just my constant there, which is a positive 24, all over that least common denominator. Now, can I do anything to that numerator? Well, I don't like that negative in the front, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to common factor out a negative 1. And I'm going to use only a negative 1 because they don't have any other common factor. So that makes it a positive 5x squared, a negative 5x, and a negative 24 over the 4 times x minus 1. So we need to check and see, can we factor in the numerator there, that 5x squared minus 5x minus 24. So let's see, I don't have any room, so I'm just going to come over here and kind of use this area here. So I'll do as a bubble too. So 5x squared minus 5x, what is it, minus 24? So let's see, the alien woman goes on vacation, kisses the man goodbye, he's gone. But remember, they multiply, and so we got, what, 5 times 24, what is that, 120? And so simple trinomial. And so we're after two numbers that are going to multiply to 120 and subtract to 5. So I'm going to pause the video for just a second here and find those numbers. So you pause it and find them yourself, and then let's check and make sure we found the same ones. Okay, so let's see. Multiply to 120 and subtract to 5. Write this down. And so we got 1 times 120, 2 times 60, 3 times 40, 4 times 30, 5 times 24, 6 times 20, 7 doesn't go into it evenly, 8 times 15, 9, 10 times 12, 11 doesn't go into it, 12 times 10, I'm repeating myself. So this is everything that multiplies to 120, and we can see that nothing subtracts to 5, so that means I cannot factor that any further. So I can check and see, since I can't factor the top any further, the bottom's already factored, is there anything that I can simplify or cancel? The only thing you could possibly do would be the -1 and the 4. So you could do that if you wanted to, and that would make it a -4 on bottom. So if you do that, you would end up with your 5x squared minus 5x minus 24 on top. We said that'd make it a -4 on bottom. And so that would be all that I saw that we could do. So this could be an answer. But it would be acceptable to leave this as your answer. Or since we factored out that -1 and we really couldn't do a whole lot with it, we could have even left that one as our answer. So all three of those would be acceptable. Alright, so that's what you're going to do on this section. And so I want to go ahead and look at number 12, because I see on 12 we can do some other stuff. And we can I see it on 10 as well, and 11, but 12's kind of, I haven't written on it yet, so, and that way I can leave the other work up there for us to look at if we need it. So remember, you got to find your least common denominator first, and you have to make sure that all your denominators are factored. So the x plus 5, I can't do it, I'm sorry, it's an n plus 5, I can't do anything else with it. But this 2n plus 6, I can common factor out of 2, which leaves me with that n plus 3. So when I go to find my least common denominator, it's got to have an n plus 5, which I don't have anything, so I've got to put that. It's together, so put in parentheses together. It's got to have a 2. It doesn't have that yet, so put a 2 by itself. And it's got to have an n plus 3. Does it have an n plus 3 yet? No, it doesn't, so go ahead and put the n plus 3. And so this is our least common denominator. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to put the 2 at the very front because, again, it's by itself. So I've got two fractions, and I'm adding them. And I'm going to put them over that least common denominator. So 2 times n plus 5 times n plus 3. Put it for both fractions. And then we got to start working with our numerator. So my first numerator was a 5. And it was over n plus 5. What did we multiply the n plus 5 by? We multiplied it by n plus 3. And we multiplied it by the 2. My second numerator was 4n. And it was over 2 and n plus 3. What did I multiply them by? I multiply them by the n plus 5, so I'm going to put it on top as well. Alright, so when we go to combine these now, so I'm going to combine my numerators over the common denominator. This 2 and 5 are both by themselves, so I'm going to put them in front. So I have 2 times 5 times n plus 3 plus, and here this 4n is by itself, so I'm just going to put it at the front too there. So 4n times n plus 5 all over the least common denominator. And then we're going to simplify. So I know that 2 times 5 is 10, and we're going to distribute that. So we have 10n plus 30. I'm going to distribute this positive 4n. So I get positive 4n squared plus 20n all over my least common denominator. Alright, so now I'm going to have to actually go ahead and erase some of this other work because I got to have some room to work. So let me erase some of this. I should have moved this up, but I didn't. Alright, so continuing on from here, let's see, how am I going to do this? How about this? We'll do it from here. Alright, so these problems are separate. So let's see, in the numerator, I can put these in descending order their exponents and combine like terms. So I have just a positive 4n squared. So positive 4n squared. I have 10n plus 20n, which is 30n. And then I have this plus 30 there. All over that least common denominator. Alright, so again, just like before, we got to worry about that numerator. So let's see if we can factor it out. I'm going to bring it over here and do a little factoring over here with it. So we have 4n squared plus 30n plus 30. First thing, it has the greatest common factor of 2. So I'm going to divide all of these numbers by 2. And then what's inside is a alien. So we're going to do that. Oops, let me change my color here. Let's see. So the alien woman's going to go on vacation. Kiss her man goodbye. She's gone. They kiss, they multiply. Simple trinomial. I want it to multiply to 30 and add to 15. So that's what 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 4, 5 times 6. And again, none of those are going to add to 15. So that means I can't factor my numerator any. So I can leave it as what we had. I'm going to circle it in pink here, where I was writing in green. What we had right here. So I could say that this is 2 times 2n squared plus 15n plus 15 over 2 times n plus 5 times n plus 3. Now we know we can't do anything else in the numerator. We already tried. Our denominator's factored out all the way, so the only thing is, can anything on top and bottom cancel? And yes, we have this 2 over 2 there. So those 2's will cancel, so we're left with 2n squared plus 15n plus 15 all over the n plus 5 times n plus 3. And so there would be our final answer. And that's why it's important, even though we couldn't factor it out using the trinomial, we still common factored it, and therefore it was able to reduce.